I was suffering from sadness. And I realized that my flavor was sadness. I liked to be sad. I liked to stay stuck. But I'm going to win the war on this horrible mindset that I have. So I did a hypnotherapy session to go back on my timeline to the moment that I anchored in sadness. And it was 3 years old. That one hypnotherapy appointment absolutely radically changed my life.
Welcome to the Awaken Magazine podcast, where influential conscious leaders come to share the real stories behind their spiritual journey and how they're helping others awaken to love. I'm your host, David Trotter. Have you ever met someone who found God in the footnotes of a law book? Well, I want to introduce you to Tisha Marie Cain. She's an executive counsel, expert mediator, executive mindset coach, and clinical hypnotherapist. And she bridges the worlds of law, leadership, and light work to help people transcend trauma and live in alignment. Her story is absolute proof that a courtroom or even your past cannot limit the possibilities of your soul. Now, if you are drawn to deeper spiritual conversations that go beyond the surface, you are in the right place. And I want to encourage you to subscribe to the Awaken Magazine podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube. Click subscribe. Leave a rating or a review. That's an easy way for you to help us spread the word about these inspiring interviews that we release each and every week. All right, let's dive into my conversation with Tisha Marie Cain. Tisha, it's so great to have you on the show today. Thanks so much for joining us.
I'm so excited to be here, David. Thank you for having me.
You have a very interesting life path, as many of us do, but yours is quite interesting. And so I'm curious, at this season of life, if you meet someone that you don't know, how would you describe yourself to them? How would you answer the question, who is Tisha Cain?
That's kind of hard, right? When I meet someone I don't know. I normally like to blow mine. So I typically say I'm one of those unicorn energies that could do everything well. I'm a Jane of all trades and a master of none. I have more letters at the end of my name that I could count at this point. And I think, David, that stems from, my past and hustling for my worth, being a middle child and trying to be seen. So I do it all these days. And I just kind of flip the script on them and start asking questions. And then once I ask questions, I say, I can help you with that, right?
Right. Yeah. I prefer not to be asked, what do I do or who am I? I just start asking them questions. And then they're like, are you interviewing me? I don't know. Maybe. I just like to get to know you. So tell me about your own journey of spirituality, consciousness, mindfulness. I always love to hear kind of starting in childhood, because obviously those are formative years. Did you grow up with some sort of faith, or was that something that was spirituality kind of introduced to you later on?
Yes, I grew up in all of the churches. My parents had the most contentious family law case in American history. So I spent every other weekend with my dad in a different church and every other weekend with my mom in a different church, and they would
Mm,
change churches. And
mm,
so every church, I've been to them all. So I've always been a woman of faith and had knowledge of higher power. And it
mhm,
wasn't until I attended law school that I was gifted with my spiritual awakening.
mm,
And during that, I became to be more enlightened and really comprehend um, one God source energy and what that is. And I had a moment of sadness where I cried for about 2 hours about the God that my family had given me wasn't the God that now I had come to
mhm,
understand what was real, and my timeless truth was the most important to me at that moment. So, and still is. And now with that higher consciousness, it's just love, David. It's just love.
mhm,
That's what I
mhm,
believe, and it gets to be so exquisite.
mhm. You mentioned you went to law school, and my understanding from your story is that you were motivated to go to law school out of your own personal challenges in life. Maybe if you wouldn't mind just kind of walking us through what were some of those challenges were, what motivated you to go to law school, and maybe if you don't mind, even going just a little bit deeper in that spiritual experience.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. Yeah. Well, I found myself through the family law court as well with my children's father, and I had 283 court dates in 6 years, fighting for the rights of my children. And I began to see things in the courtroom that was wonky and weird, and I couldn't figure it out. And I would sit down and strategize 10 different paths that the judge would choose, and he would always give me the 11th path, and I could never figure it out. So that motivated me to go to law school. And I thought to myself, am I smart enough to go to law school? I had to understand what the stories I was telling in my head. Can I go to law school to figure this out? And I studied. They said you had to study for the LSAT for about 6 months. I studied 2 weeks and I scored very high. It could go to any law school of my choosing. Um, but I was kind of stuck in the family law court. And so I couldn't move. And so I chose to go to a local college here in California. And through that,
So you were simultaneously navigating family law with your children. How many children did you have at the time?
four.
4 children. And so you're trying to navigate that with your previous partner. And then simultaneously, you went to law school.
Yes.
Fascinating. Okay. And did you find that the attorney that you had at the time was not meeting your expectations, or you were just hungry to learn yourself?
Um, Good question. I did hire an attorney at that moment, and she gave me horrible advice. I was a victim of domestic violence, survivor of domestic violence, and she gave me horrible advice. And then once I realized, hey, I could probably do this on my own and figure it out, I knew that I couldn't have a mouthpiece on the case. I knew that no one was more intimate with my children and my case than me. And so I decided to go at it alone and fire all of my attorneys. And it was great. It was through that process I began to get over the fear. I learned public speaking, right? I learned to stand on my own. I learned to stand on my own truth. And so, yeah, I was going through law school, learning the law, bringing that back in. And one of the funny things was that in law, it says the moment that you hire an attorney, you become a ward of the state and you're incompetent to handle your own affairs. So I even brought that out in court and I said, hey, just because, the other side has hired an attorney, it shows that he's incompetent to handle his own affairs. And I'm standing on my own and my own truth. And who's more competent here? So I
Mhm.
left these courtrooms pretty speechless most of the time, but I think my aura negotiated my worth even before my mouth did.
Hmm. So you are going through law school. You mentioned earlier that you had this kind of spiritual experience or awakening. What was it that triggered that? Was it pain? Was it a certain teacher or book, or what kind of brought that out for you?
Yeah. So I was praying all through law school. Can I get the knowledge in quickly? And can I really retain this? Because, reading the American justice system law books, it's very, very dense. And to pull out the rule of law and all of the things that they wanted us to do, I remember the moment I was sitting in my criminal law class and my professor said, "Hey, Tisha, the devil's in the details." And being a woman of faith, I've always heard it say that God is in the details. So that was a little perplexing to me. And he said, "Hey, the devil's in the details. I want you to pay very specific attention to the footnotes of your criminal law books." And I said, "Okay, great." So I would read the case and go down and pay specific attention to the footnotes of my law books. Well, it was in that moment that I saw intertwined scripture was there. And I thought, interesting, if there's supposed to be a separation of church and state, why the heck is there scripture in the middle of my criminal law book?
Hmm.
And so that opened up. I just played 2-year old and I kept asking questions and questions and questions. And so my cohorts were reading legal And I was simultaneously reading lawful, and there's a clear distinction between legal and lawful. And I just kept praying. I said, you know what, God, I need to get the legal stuff in. I need to have a photographic memory. I need to move through this quickly because all I want to do now is read the Bibles. And so I did. God blessed me, and I play. I don't know about you, David, but I pray to Gus, God, universe, and spirit. So I'm like, Gus, I just need to have a photographic memory so I can get this legal stuff in, memorize it, so I can move on to read the lawful. And and I got a photographic memory. I didn't have to go back. Like I read it once. I underlined the rule of law, wrote it down, and I was on my path. And my professors wrote at the top of my law school exams. They wrote, Tisha, you remain at the top of your cohort. You remain at the top. Not that I am at the top, but I remain at the top. Because what I realized was it was easy to learn fraud, and it was harder to learn the truth.
Hmm.
And so I was reading all their stuff, being indoctrinated. It was great. And I was like, okay, this is easy. And it became to get really, really easy for me. And God just showed me the truth on the way out of it, through it, and past it. And I was so, so blessed to be given that experience.
Mhm. That moment you mentioned where there was a grieving of the loss of what you had believed or received, and then now something else. What, what precipitated that awakening or coming to a different perspective? What was it that caused that moment?
Yeah, I think it was relating back to reading legal and then lawful and reading the books. And I began to get so angry at the Bibles. And in law, they teach us one word changes everything. So, David, if you and I go to Target and we buy a red or a yellow shirt, that's different than going to Target and buying a red and a yellow shirt. So one word changes everything. So I began, and I have 14 Bibles here in this house. I began to lay them all out and realized that they had changed the words in these Bibles. They had changed a statement to a question. They changed an and to an or. And then I just kind of popped through it all and said, oh, wow, I'm not angry at the Bibles. I'm angry at the people who tampered with the Bibles. And
Hmm.
what really is the truth? And it was me just meditating and praying and pulling those Bibles apart to find the truth. And my truth came not in the written word, but my truth came in the white on the page, the white in between the words on the page.
Tell me more about that. What does that mean? The truth is on the in the white between the words on the page. What does that mean?
Yeah. So I took one scripture and I told my family, come on, let's go to Bible school. Let's take this one scripture. We have 14 Bibles and lay it on top of each other all the way down.
Mhm.
And we can see where and or the period or the question mark changed all the way down.
Mhm.
And then I remember I had my hands on the table looking down. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to find the truth here. And all of a sudden, in these scriptures of them laying on top, the white through the pages, the blank spaces became,
Mhm.
it wasn't in the words per se. It was in the vibration and the codes that rose from within the lines.
Mhm.
And it was embedded in my soul. And then I couldn't deny the feeling that I felt of the higher power, the enlightenment, the awakening, that the remedy wasn't within the books. The remedy was within.
Mhm. Mhm. One of the modalities that you have studied intensely and utilize in your coaching is hypnotherapy.
Mm.
And so I'm curious when you were introduced to hypnotherapy, which is not necessarily welcomed in most local Christian churches. It's welcomed at the state fair, but not at churches. So,
In the
like how
past.
How were you introduced to hypnotherapy and how did it impact your life in the beginning?
Yes, thank you for asking. You're right. I fight this all the time because the Christian faith thinks it's mind control, and that's furthest from the truth, right? I was introduced to hypnotherapy because of my 283 court dates in the family law, fighting for the rights of my children. I had missed them. Um, and I was suffering from sadness. And I realized that my flavor was sadness. I liked to be sad. I liked to stay stuck. And it was in the moment that I thought, okay, all right, I figured out my truth. We're going to win. We might win some battles. We might lose some battles, but I'm going to win the war on this horrible mindset that I have. And someone told me, hey, Tisha, what you're looking for is not going to be in a book. And you're very logical. What you're looking for is not going to be in a book. It's going to be higher than that. And you may try hypnotherapy. And I thought, okay. So I did a hypnotherapy session to go back on my timeline to the moment that I anchored in sadness. And it was 3 years old. I anchored in sadness and then I reorganized that negative energy throughout my timeline and then brought it through to today. And that, David, that one hypnotherapy appointment absolutely radically changed my life, where my husband said, whoa, I have an upgraded wife. And so it was then I was like, whoa, I am radically changed. I flew to Australia to become a clinical hypnotherapist. I spent a month over there studying.
Wow.
I knew I had to bring this modality back to the States, to the world, because I believe it's the cheat code. It's the fastest way to healing um, that you can get. So when I was introduced to that and it transformed my life, I knew I had to help.
Amazing. Uh, there are a number of different paths of hypnotherapy. I don't know them all, but I'm just curious if the particular flavor of hypnotherapy that you have been trained in and that you provide in terms of your clients, is that something you could explain to us?
Absolutely. I actually developed my own hypnotherapy modality called the Radical Breakthrough Protocol, and that is registered and trademarked through the state of California. And it's a form of timeline therapy too, where we go back and neutralize the major negative emotions. So, anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame, not good enough, those six major emotions. Typically, one session with me, we do one major emotion. But what I've found in my practice is we don't have to do all six, because sometimes if we go in and we work on shame, the not good enough unravels. Or if we work on fear, the guilt unravels. So we don't necessarily have to do all six. We can. Um, but yeah, so hypnotherapy, just going back on that timeline therapy, is something that I developed my own modality, and it's been very, very successful.
Talk me through a session with you. How long is it? How does it begin? So for somebody who hasn't gone through a hypnotherapy session, like what would they experience with you? What could they expect?
Sure. And I do a holistic approach. So it's 90 minutes with me, either Zoom, energy transcends, through Zoom, as well as in my office. I have an office, a quantum healing office in with my legal associates. So they kind of laugh at me because they're like, oh, she's got a quantum healing down there. I'm like, no paper over in this office, right? So they could come into the office or we can do it via Zoom. It's 90 minutes and we look at where they typically like to catch me up on all the trauma that they've
Let me
gone
tell you my whole
through.
story.
Yeah, and I'm like, "Okay, we need to stay out of the stories. I don't really care what happened. I do, but I don't really care what happened. We just wanna know, where do you wanna go? What do you wanna create from here?" And give them a line of sight on what they wanna create. So, after that, then, we work on I'm a master intuitive as well, so I could find as I check out their chakras in their body, and as I bring them through, just close our eyes and meditate, pray together. Let's check out fear, and then I'll go down through their body and give them like a quick little body scan to see where, if fear is presented in their body. And then I do that with anger and sadness. And then I have them tell me, although I've already figured it out before they've told me, I'm like, okay, they got fear, they got shame. That is the highest charge. And then they'll say, I have fear. And I'm like, yeah, I knew. Okay, cool. Let's work on fear today. And is that okay with you? And they're like, yeah. And then so I just simply have them lay back on my chaise lounge, and we get into it's a meditative state. I give them the mama tuck, right? I give them a little blanket, little pillows, give them the mama tuck, and then just ask them to play the game. It's a game of life. Just be open, and they are going to receive at the level in which they're willing to give. So, are you willing to play full all out? You've just invested. We don't spend money or spend time. Neurolinguistics is important. We invest time. We invest money. You just invested a lot of money for this session today. I want you to get the most value out of it. So just play the game. So we do about 10 to 20 minutes of induction, which means just getting you real comfortable, relaxed. And then I take them back on their timeline to every moment in their timeline where they anchored in fear. So what they do is they go back on their timeline and just bring it up, look at it, and then move back still. Bring it up, look back, move. And we want to go back to that earliest experience. So once we go back to that earliest experience, we look around, reorganize that energy, and then I bring them back through to today. And the common denominator, once everyone is done, what I hear is, holy cow, I can't believe I remembered that. Holy cow, I can't believe that I anchored that fear in when I was, 5. And they always say, I feel lighter. And then they get up and walk out, and they actually are taller. And then I give them, after our session, I just say, tell me what you saw. And sometimes they cry. We go deep into the emotion. And then after the session, I give them 2 integration calls. So if we have it on Monday, the next Monday we talk about it. And I just created a launching pad for their life. So the next Monday, they're like, wow, I'm making more money this week than I ever have because I feel cleared. I feel like I have awareness. Awareness is the healing. And then they just keep on keeping on, and it's so beautiful that they're able to see that, rewire, neutralize that major emotion, and just feel more empowered.
And then you said kind of one issue per session. And so then the next session, perhaps you then do another body scan to tap into another one of those negative emotions.
Absolutely. Typically, they'll come back and say, okay, great. I have no more fear, but now I'm feeling a little bit guilt, and guilt is coming up. Can we neutralize that? Absolutely. So then we'll go in and neutralize guilt, and then they'll get all the awareness. And so when we go in and we get with the subconscious brain, I tell them, like, for the next 3 days, your subconscious, you're so suggestible. So just when you get ready to go to bed at night, just ask the questions. What more do I need to know about that scene that I saw? And then when you get up, just, take copious notes to to get awareness about that scene and why you anchored in sadness or fear or guilt the way that you did. And
Mhm.
then start moving forward towards your goals. So I give them a holistic approach and a roadmap to kind of move out of stuck to unstoppable.
Mhm. What are some of the false beliefs or misconceptions that people have about hypnotherapy that you hear as you're, just out and about talking to people? Or what are those common misconceptions, and how would you want to clear those up even today?
Yeah, a lot of the misconceptions are, this goes against my religious beliefs, and your mind controlling me, and I don't believe in that. And so I just invite them to educate themselves. Use AI, use anything to help you get more educated. They're in control the whole time. Some people believe it's magic, and they don't realize that magic isn't even in the Bible, because the Bible is one of the books that everybody has that nobody reads, right? And so I'm like, go back to the Bible. Magic's in the Bible, but it's not magic. This is where you are totally in control the whole time. And we just go back, and you're in a meditative, relaxed state. And we go back and see what's there. And so I just clear it up, and I just empower them. Whenever you feel ready, when you're done with the sadness, when you're done living in fear, just come see me. And then they'll go, ah. They'll get a little like, "Oh, wow, I get to decide?" Yeah, you get to decide when you're done carrying that, then you'll reach out because that's exactly what happened to me. I was done with the sadness, so I was willing I threw $25,000 down at the coach's feet and said, "I need help. I know that you're just the one to help me.
Mhm.
Can you help me?" And he said, "Absolutely." And he did, and I was transformed.
Mhm. One of the things that you mentioned in the session is encouraging people to quote unquote play the game. And so I'm assuming the opposite of that is being resistant at some level. And so when you have someone who is resistant in that hypnotherapy process, how do you navigate that personally?
Yeah, so in that set and I've had it where, my more logical, type left brain C-suite individuals, I help a lot of C-suite that they're always in their left brain, is getting them to move over to their creative brain and just through the power of suggestion, I'm like, "Okay, hey, David, you can be in the room. Your logical mind can stay here and watch everything that's happening, but we're going to have that logical mind just step aside right now. I'm going to put you in the corner. You can watch, but we're not talking to you. We want to talk to the subconscious creative brain. Let's bring that out and then bring that out and just kind of make it light and fun and whatever you make meaning of, right? So we made meaning of these stories in the past that has either kept us stuck or propelled us forward. And so when I sense resistance, and I'm a very cognizant, clairsentient individual, so I feel things at the molecular level. So I
Mhm.
can feel when my client is a bit resistant, and so I'll just take a little longer for induction.
Mhm.
One of the induction techniques is I put them up on the cloud, and so we just float on the cloud a little bit longer. Just stay on the cloud. They typically don't like to come off, but they just stay up there and float around a little bit until they're a little bit more at ease, and then we go from there.
Yeah. It seems like it's probably not resistance as in obstinance, but more of a blockage, probably, as you mentioned. Like it's like, well, I assume somebody would say, I don't see anything, I don't remember anything. That's more the blockage. Would you say that's true?
That is true. And so visualization is huge. So normally I'll start out and say, close your eyes. Can you see a red bird? And if they say no, then okay, now I know. Okay,
Right, right.
first thing is like, okay, can you see a blue car, right? And then start pulling that up first to make sure that they can visualize. Because I've had clients, she's in, where is she? South Carolina, and she can't visualize very well. But you know what she can do? She could feel it.
Hmm.
So she couldn't see the red bird, but
Mhm.
she could feel the red bird next to her.
Fascinating.
So I'm like, great. So that allowed me to pivot in our session to bring in all the feeling senses versus all the visual senses.
Mhm.
And she got total transformation from it.
Mhm. After having utilized hypnotherapy for clients for quite some time, is there something that has recently kind of like surprised you, or like, wow, I've been doing this for a while, but that was unique, or that was different? Does anything come to mind, like, or that was unexpected, or
What does initially come to mind is my younger clients. When I go back on their timeline and I want to get to the initial event of where they anchored in sadness,
Mhm.
they get there quickly because
Mhm.
they don't have a long lifespan. Maybe they have 23 years, right?
Yeah, yeah.
My 83-year-old client, I need to give her, she goes back on sadness for 83 years, and sometimes they even pop into a past life. And
Wow.
so like, "Oh, okay, that's where we are." So that was really interesting. So now as we go into session, I take into account their physical age
Hmm.
because they may get to the initial experience of where they decided, and I use these words for a reason, where they decided to anchor in fear, where they decided to anchor in shame, uh, on their timeline. So the younger clients get there quicker. The older clients normally The sessions are a little bit longer because I take them through all of that because I really want to go back in their past and neutralize all of that. And the way that you neutralize that is you have to bring it up for resolution. That's what subconscious does. Is you
Hmm.
bring it up for resolution. Sometimes subconscious will keep things repressed for your protection because it's your subconscious is there for your safety. And
Hmm.
so I even do a forensic hypnotherapy appointment, and that has been very, very interesting and fun. Where I had a client who got hit by a car, but he knew that he saw the license plate before he got hit by the car, got hit and run. And so we went back in a forensic hypnotherapy appointment, and he was able to pull out the license plate number. Fascinating.
That is amazing. That is absolutely amazing. I think equally amazing is when you talked about an individual kind of having something in a past life come up. At what point did you become aware, believe that there are past lives? Was this when you were in your hypnotherapy training? Did it come afterward? I want to hear about that because it's very fascinating.
Yeah, it is so fascinating. In our training, they did train us about that as well, that people could go to the past lives, people could go anywhere they want to go, right?
Hmm.
And so just be in a state of allowance.
Hmm.
And so I had one client who went back, we did a past life regression, and we went back, and this is a 6-hour appointment with me. So I moved him 3 different lifetimes back, and one of the lifetimes he went to the void. And as a practitioner, it was my first time having a client go to the void. I'm like, "Do you perceive yourself having a body?" He said, "No." And I'm
Hmm.
like, "Oh, okay. What do I do with this?" He says, "It's all dark here." So then I started to have to ask questions that and a lot of this is asking questions to get out of that scene what you need to get out for your client to get resolution. And he
Hmm.
went back to the void before he even had a body, and it was all dark. And he said, "I love it here, and I don't even want to leave here. This is so beautiful here. Yeah, I could see light, I can see everything, but I can see nothing." And I'm
Hmm.
like, "Wow, this is very, very interesting." And then I've had other clients where, like she has a partner and a girlfriend in this life, and she didn't understand why her whole entire life she was ostracized by her family. Like, "Hey, I'm a woman who loves women, and I don't understand this." And in her past life, she was a man. So she went back to debtor's prison to realize that she was a man in debtor's prison with fear. And then when she came through, she goes, "Oh, I just incarnated here. I was a man in my past life and I incarnated here as a woman. No wonder." And so it just made her just be a different person and float through life with the understanding now that she chose to incarnate in this lifetime as a woman because she had the experience of a man and she wanted to have that experience. And as a practitioner, it was my first like, whoa, okay, this where I don't know where we're going with this, but let's go. And what I've seen and what I've heard from my clients, like they're, it's so fascinating because one, I know we're all one, and I know there's a higher power, and I know it's even bigger than what we can even imagine. And we're just a speck of sand on the beach. We're just one little bleep, and life is what we get to make it. And
Hmm.
so, man, it's just been so exquisite.
Do some of your clients come out of this hypnotic state and are they surprised themselves of what they have like seen or experienced?
Yes, because they couldn't get to the memories consciously. I had one client who anchored in not good enough. And she says, "I just don't know why." And she's a very high achiever in this life right now. And she anchored in not good enough when she was 3 years old on an Easter egg hunt with her cousins. And she was the youngest little girl on this Easter egg hunt. And her cousins were like grabbing all the Easter eggs, and they had their whole baskets full, and she had 2 eggs. And at that moment, she anchored in she wasn't good enough and has carried that her whole entire life until she realized, "Oh, I was the littlest little girl. Of course I wasn't going to have my basket full."
Mm,
And really got awareness why she doesn't need to carry that around anymore. And just
mm,
kind of neutralized it and said, "Oh, I get it now. And then she's making more money and living out her dreams and really just having that awareness just kind of dropped all the boundaries and the boxes that she was operating in. So it's just, oh, it's so great to follow up with them and say, "How are you doing? What's going on?" And she said, "I didn't even realize I couldn't get there. If I just sat here in my chair and tried to go back to that earliest memory, I could not have got there alone." That's why coaches need coaches, right? Even though I'm a coach, I still hire a coach because I can't get there alone. Take me through, ask me the questions that I need for resolution, and
Mhm.
then it gets to be really good.
Mhm. So one of the things that I love doing as well is each one of our guests is checking out their LinkedIn. And because many of us who are in more of a spiritual consciousness, mindfulness coaching kind of world, we come from all these various, unique backgrounds. People go to mine, they're going to see I was a photographer in high school and college, and then I worked for a newspaper actually as a sports photographer, and then I was a pastor for 10 years. So people are like, "What? This is crazy." For you, I look at your LinkedIn, you were in the trucking industry for many, many years, and then pivoted to law. And then now, not only serving people through legal support, but also as a coach and a hypnotherapist. I'm curious, as you look at your, like when you look back on your timeline and you see these at least three kind of distinct career themes. What is the thread that runs through that? Like, as you see that, is there a thread or is it just more an expression in different seasons? Like, how do you make meaning out of your experiences?
I believe that I'm a hybrid. So what that means is I could do it all, right? So when I look back, I could have 20 balls and juggle them in the air and never miss a beat. I People say, "Tisha, how do you do it all?" And I just say, "I don't. I've been blessed, right?" And when I look back, I could keep track of all those moving parts. I love logistics. I love um, strategy. I love geography, maps. If you can put me in front of a map, I'm very efficient. I hate waste. I was in corporate America. I was trained in lean management and Six Sigma, right? And just making sure there was no waste of time, no waste of inventory. I even get on my little 10-year-old when I say, "Okay, it's time to dump the garbage," and there's three garbages in the house, and he chooses to take one and
One
then
at a time.
oh my goodness. It's like, and I will not go out of route. So if to get there, I know the quickest way to get there. And if we go out of route, it just is so annoying to me. So the theme is I could keep everything going at once. I have more energy because I have a passion for life, a passion for Gus, a passion for helping. I know why I'm here. And I could keep all everything going at once. I have more energy to empower my block if we went out for lights. And so that common theme is just knowing that there's a lot of moving parts and I can keep it all going. The caveat to that is knowing that I can keep it all going, but it's important sometimes that I have to ask for help. And I get to have help. So, in the past, I wouldn't ask and I would just do it all. And now I get
Mhm.
to say, "Hey, okay, mommy needs help over here. Can you help me out? We got a lot going on." And then people want to help. You just have to use your throat chakra and ask for what you need. So,
Mhm.
so good.
So you were in a management roles, executive roles in the trucking industry as a female, a young female, and I'm curious, um, what was that experience like? How does that even, inform what you're doing now? What are the lessons that you learned then that are even impacting your work that you're doing these days?
Yeah, so I was a very young manager. I've always been a clear leader. I was president of FFA in high school. I've always been a clear leader.
For people who don't know what that is, it is Future Farmers of America. I think I belonged to like half a year in Kentucky. when I grew up there. I just, it was in a classroom. I didn't even make it to the farm.
Kentucky's a good place to be, so that's awesome, yeah. Yeah, and they really Future Farmers of America really set you up for success because they want you to be a speaker and an entrepreneur and things
Yes.
like that. And so I've always been kind of out front, um, in that executive role and been a young I remember I was 18 years old and I was a job coach. And what I would do is I would go in for develop they and I don't know if this is the right language because I've been out of corporate America for a while, but I back then it was I would help the developmentally delayed individuals perform their job duties. So I was 18 and I would go help, someone who had Down syndrome wash dishes in the back of a Denny's. And I would say, hey, we just need to make sure that, everything is sanitary and things like that. And then I moved throughout these leadership roles and just I had to earn the respect as a trucking manager. I was a senior ops manager. I think I was like 27 and I was managing drivers who had been driving for like 30 years. And who are you, some girl coming in here who's 27 who thinks she knows everything about the trucking industry and you're going to be bossing me around? And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not about bossing you around. It's about partnership. It's about, hey, I went out and got my CDL, my Class A truck driver's license too. I'm just you. A long line of truckers. You know the ice road truckers, David, the ones that go up into the
Yeah. Yeah.
Alaska. Yeah, I managed those. So I was a key manager of the ice road truckers, and I did all of that, and I just had to show them that it's collaboration. We're here for a goal. We're here to make the world go round. And I worked for Roger Penske. I work for CVS Pharmacy. I work for Trader Joe. The biggest companies, um, the biggest companies, and I loved it. I loved it. And now I pivoted and said, you know what? If I can make other people millions, I can certainly make myself millions. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm impacting millions and making millions. And life is so, so good because I know that I'm the captain of my own ship.
Yeah. Yeah. You released several books in the last year, and one of them is entitled The Wisdom of the Trees, which we will link to. It is not only a book, but an oracle card deck, I believe. It has your paintings in it with statements. How would you describe that book? It's very unique.
Sure. Actually, I brought it here to the wisdom of the trees. It's like a little lookbook. So you open it up and it was me just wanting to be more devoted to self, more committed to my family and myself. And so I sat down the beginning of this year and committed myself to art and said, I'm going to paint trees and I'm going to channel in my Bob Ross energy. And David, if you want a personal growth and development activity, do art. Because what I noticed was, boy, all of the trash talk came up. Like, oh,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
think you're an artist? Oh, look at your leaves on those trees. Those are garbage. And I threw so many trees in the garbage because I thought that I am no artist. And then my mantra became produce first and judge later. So then with every stroke of the pen, I was like, I'm just going to love this little tree. I'm going to just pour my heart into this little tree. And so at the end of 100 days, this ended in a little bit after March, April of this year, I decided I was going to publish a book, and it was called The Wisdom of the Trees. And the reason why was we have property in Minnesota and
Mm,
I had to go to the trees to get some comprehension because in my family law case, I had spent 283 court hearings for the fight and the rights to my children. And
mhm,
I had sued everybody who had touched this case. So I knew if I kept going in, I wasn't going to get my kids back. And I knew if
mm,
I stayed out, I wasn't going to get my kids back. So I was at a conundrum. So I
mm,
went and tapped into nature and I thought I'd meditate and pray to God in the middle of the Minnesota woods. And I thought I was going to get the answer very, very quickly. And boy, was I wrong. The trees again taught me patience to sit there. So 9 days, I prayed, I
mm,
meditated. Do I go in? Do I go out? Do I
mm,
stay, go keep fighting for my children? And that was the wrong words, right? So
mm.
And so at the end of 9 days, I had to let go. And the difference between giving up and letting go was in alignment. Giving up is out of alignment. So I had to let go of the fight. And in doing so, my whole world changed. So it was my dedication to this book, The Wisdom of the Tree. So you would just open it up. It's like a purse book or an office book, right? So I keep this one in my purse and I'm like, okay, thank you, God, for all the blessings today. What do I need to know? And then I open the book and it's my tree that I painted. I
I'm
am.
vibrant.
Mm-hmm. And this one's for my goddaughter Alexis. So there's some trees throughout this book that I dedicated to my godchildren and my mother and my children who were, I say legally kidnapped, but that's a hyperbole. People don't really know what that means. But they're with dad and they'll come home soon. But I dedicated some trees to my children, and so from there it sprung into an oracle card deck. So you can even do the little lookbook, or you can get the deck and shuffle the cards, and then embody the wisdom of the trees because nature's here to guide us and show us and direct us in a way that feels aligned with us.
And
Yeah.
you said you painted and wrote the book in 100 days. Yeah. Yeah. It's something about sitting down each day. I assume some days that you were excited to sit down, and other days you probably might not have been as motivated.
Yeah. Yeah. Every day. Well, I think after probably about 30 days, my husband, he did the same thing as well. And he published his book. He did Barnes. And so it was our family thing. Do you want to do art? Oh, yeah, let's get supper done so we could do art, right? And then our 10-year-old is wanting to do art too, is a great artist. And I didn't realize um, the way through is just creating. And I'm a multi-passionate creator, a thought leader, and I didn't realize the amount of fulfillment I was going to get when I just sat down and poured myself into a different creation.
hmm Yeah. I've published a watercolor children's book, and I wrote it, and watercolor, did every page. So I know that whole experience. It's quite a,
Cathartic, right?
it's,
Cathartic, wouldn't you say?
it's, yeah, it's cathartic. And also it brings up all of the, stories of not good enough. And this is not, it should look like this. And people are going to judge and, all those crazy thoughts in the process. So,
It does, yeah, and
yeah,
we
yeah,
should all over ourselves, right? I'm like, "It
that's
should
true.
look this way in this tree," and I had to go back and I'm like, "Oh, if you look at trees in nature, they're not perfect.
Yeah.
Could I allow?" And that was the one thing when I published the lookbook, I said, "I'm gonna put all of the trees there." Whereas
Mm.
the oracle card deck, I just picked my favorite 55. And I
Okay.
chose 55 because that's my mom was born on 5/1/55. But so when I put the lookbook together, I said, no, even the ones that I don't like are going in here. And
Mm.
those became some of my husband's favorites, some of my family. I'm like, you really like that one? Because I hate that one. So I allowed myself to show up raw. And you mentioned something that I did. I sprung off a few books this year and I was thinking, okay, I published The Wisdom of the Trees first, and then I did a couple more quickly after that. And so I sat with myself, why did I do that? Because I think I did it unconsciously. And the answer I came up with was the wisdom of the trees is really my heart. Like I poured my heart and my soul into these trees for 100 days. I have never been more proud of a project than I am of this book. And I never thought that I would feel the way that I feel. And so the other two books came quickly because I felt like I wanted to guard my heart a little bit. So
Mm.
if I published the other two, they wouldn't see this one and maybe this one could be guarded a little bit more. So I thought,
Mhm.
ooh, Miss Tisha Marie Cain, you're an interesting bird. So now, speaking of bird, unconsciously, I wrote this book called the I Am series relating to God. I am. So you open up the book, each of the trees is called I am. I am connected to my roots. I am free. I am. And I called it the I Am series not knowing. So I'm thinking, well, what do trees need? Trees need little birds. So I'm doing the wisdom of the birds, the I Am series. So I'm doing
Ah.
100 days of little birds. And after that, I'm going to kick off 100 days of little fish. and have a whole little series that I can leave a legacy to my children.
I
So
love
beautiful.
that. I love that. One of the other books that you have put out this year is called Transcend, The Path to Limitless Expansion. And you outline what you call the Transcend method. We don't have to go through each one of the steps, but I'm just curious, if I were to pick up that book, if one of our listeners picks up that book, what am I going to receive from it?
Absolutely. It's a tiny book, so it's a 45-minute read. I got what was it? Number one international best-selling author for business and coaching in this book. Transcend is the path to limitless expansion, and each letter in the word transcend goes with part of my method. So it's a 9-week coaching program. And the tiny book just takes you through that first step. It's transforming the subconscious mind. And so I take you through what the subconscious is, how it's a protective system, and just kind of educate people. And then it gives you more ways to work with me in the future. So I currently have 7 clients going through the Transcend method right now, and they're all doing phenomenally well, transforming their lives. And it's just a little cheat code. I love big levers, easy buttons, cheat codes to live our best life. And so this is a 45-minute short read. Pick it up. It's the first step to transform your life.
Wonderful. I know you also are coming alongside authors, especially first time authors that are wanting to get their message out there. What do you offer in terms of helping them get that first book out into the world?
Great. Yeah. So I have Cain and Company Publishing. So we're a publishing house here in California, a little boutique publisher. And if you're, I even help people do the easy button too. It doesn't have to be 300 pages, right? Let's just get your story out. So I do cover creation. I'm a publisher, so I'm not an editor. I want your fully edited manuscript, and then I could get your book published on whatever platform you want to do. There's a press here in town that we can get it printed there. And one of the best projects I'm excited about is I have a legacy company here in my town in California who's been in business for 116 years, who have just signed my contract for me to get their legacy book about their company and how they've withstood the test of time. And we're going to publish their book in May. And I'm getting all of the interviews from the top C-suite executives in a book, and we're going to publish that book too. So that's the bigger one. But if you're, I just give a megaphone to people for their voice. All of it, we all have a story. We're all, and if you could get that published and out, the feeling of that is like when I published this book, I just cried and I was so proud. And if I could do that and pass the baton to someone else to get that feeling, that's what I want.
It's great satisfaction without a doubt. Yeah. What is the best place for people to connect with you online, to follow your work, to reach out to book a session? What's the next step?
Yes. So I'm not totally famous yet. So I'm a 3-name person. I can't be like Usher or Beyonce, right? So it's Tisha Marie Cain on all platforms. You can find me on www.tishamariecain.com. You could go to Instagram, Tisha Marie Cain, Facebook, LinkedIn, Tisha Marie Cain. My website is the best place to connect, and you can book a session there. You have full access to my calendar if you're wanting to do hypnotherapy. I'm a dream work practitioner. I help interpret the dreams. There really isn't anything I don't do. We opened this call with I'm a unicorn energy, and there isn't really anything I don't do well. And I'm just here not to sell you anything, but more importantly, I'm here to serve.
Mm-hmm. Tisha, it is great to be with you today. Thanks for sharing your story, your passion. It's obvious you have just such a deep passion to help people in all these different ways. For me, when I ask you the question of the golden thread, for me, the golden thread is service, right? Whether it's serving the people that you were working with, that you were managing, serving your clients, serving your kids through the legal process, serving your clients now. I think the thread is service. So thank you.
Absolutely. I think the more we serve, the more it gets to be so beautiful.
Thanks for listening to the Awaken Magazine podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and our other conversations, would you mind taking a moment to leave a 5-star review and maybe even a comment on Spotify or Apple Podcasts? That's one of the ways that you can give back to the show and help us reach more people. And of course, feel free to share the episode with a friend. And if you're not already on our email list, we send out an inspiring email every Monday morning full of articles and interviews. Just head on over to awakenedmagazine.com and click subscribe and join for free. Our hope is that all the resources we share will help our world continue awakening to love.